Welcome to today's episode of the Basics of Percussion. Today I'm going to give you an overview of the timpani, what it is, how to set it up, and how to play it. Let's get started. The timpani, aka the kettle drum, is a tuned instrument constructed of a bowl and a head, unlike the snare drum or bass drum, which has two heads each. Because the bowls are a resonating chamber, they allow for pitch. Bowls are made of copper, aluminum, or fiberglass. Fiberglass is the most durable and the cheapest, while copper has the best sound quality. And heads used to be made of calf skin, but now are typically plastic. A standard set of timpani is comprised of 4 drums, and then there's sometimes a 5th smallest drum called the piccolo drum. The largest is a 32-inch, and then it decreases by 3 with each drum. So we have a 32-inch, 29-inch, 26-inch, 23-inch, and then a 20-inch. Each drum has a practical range of a perfect fifth. It can play outside of this range, but this is the ideal sound. We want to avoid playing the very lowest of these standard ranges if possible, because the sound can get pretty flabby. If it's possible, play that same pitch on the next largest drum. The deeper the bowl, the darker the sound. On screen now is each drum with its practical range. Now the timpani will be arranged in a semicircle, left to right, largest to smallest. We want these to be as close as possible without touching each other, because we want the beating spots to be easy to strike when pivoting without changing the normal playing position of the arms. When moving the timpani, make sure to move them by the lugs and then to lock the wheels so the drums don't move while you're performing. Now when playing the timpani, you can either stand or sit down on a stool. I typically lean back on a stool for support because sitting will support the tuning pedal adjustments that would be difficult and awkward while standing up. The goal of sitting is also for the hands to be relaxed and the stick shaft to be parallel with the floor as the mallet head contacts the drum. There are 2 main types of timpani grip, French and German. With the French grip, the palms face one another and the thumbs are on top of the sticks, while the German is pretty much the same as the snare drum grip. Because of how easily it transfers to both snare drum and keyboard instruments, many students learn German grip. Ultimately, it's up to you whether you want to use German or French. If you're interested in the German grip, then refer to the video on screen now or look at my blog on my website to see how to play with matched grip. I generally use a grip more akin to the French grip because the matched grip is great for a more staccato sound like a snare drum, but the timpani is much more resonant and large, and the French grip is just more appropriate for that in my opinion. How to hold the stick. The outer edge of your hand should be pretty much parallel with the butt of the stick when you grip it. First, create your fulcrum between the pad of your thumb and the outer joint of your first finger. Your thumb goes on top of the stick rather than diagonally as it does in matched grip. We don't want to pinch the stick, so let your second and third fingers ride along as you play. The pinky finger does not touch the stick. Above all, stay relaxed with all your fingers. Before we start, let's try this exercise. First, place your palms together, fingertips pointing up, like a meditation or prayer. Keeping the palms together and rotating from your forearm, swiftly motion your hands down and back up. Keep your arms still, purely rotating the wrist and forearm. If you're doing it properly, your hands will alternate from pointing forward and coming back up. With this motion in mind, our 2 types of stroke will be the piston and the legato strokes. Both can be accomplished with this French-inspired technique, but the smooth legato stroke will be much easier to accomplish with this French grip rather than the snare drum grip. Let's begin by talking about the piston stroke. We use this stroke for a more articulate tone. While you play, make sure to be on the lookout for any tension in your fingers. You don't want to compromise your fulcrum or your stroke. Onto the legato stroke. Because of the tone and touch of this instrument, this is your general playing stroke when on the timpani. The stroke is going to be smooth and even, not shooting down and up quickly like with the piston stroke. Now we have our technique checklist. 1. Velocity. 2. Fulcrum pressure. 3. Stick height. 4. Beating spots. 1. Velocity. The volume output by the drum depends on the velocity of your stick, not the stick height. If you want a louder volume, increase the velocity. If you want lower, decrease. 2. Fulcrum pressure. Your fulcrum is the outer joint of your first finger and the pad of your thumb. Place the fulcrum about 4 inches from the butt of the stick. The thumb will go on top of the stick, not diagonally like with matched grip. Fulcrum should be loose at first and only as firm as to keep the sticks from falling out of your hands while playing. You'll eventually learn to vary the firmness of your grip based on the desired articulation. Most of all, your grip is relaxed. 3. Stick height. Your sticks should be playing at about 10 inches to 12 inches high. 4. Beating spots. Strike the drum about 2 to 5 inches away from the rim. This rule varies from drum to drum. Larger drums call for an attack further from the rim, while smaller drums need you to strike closer to the rim. Don't play too close to the rim though, because the sound will become too nasally and thin. Here's an example. And as you strike further from the rim and closer to the edge, the sound becomes tubby and less resonant. Now that we have our actual length away from the rim figured out, how far away should the mallets be from each other? We want our mallets to be spread out about 6 inches apart from each other whenever we're playing just generally. A little wider for rolls, about 8 to 10 inches, and a little closer for staccato or articulated sounds, about 3 inches away. Overall, we want to make sure our beating spots are consistent for a consistent sound. Each drum has a place for your right and left hands to strike. As you shift from drum to drum, return to these same beating spots for a consistent sound. Staccato articulation. Staccato means to play with a sharp or shortened sound, and is notated by a dot above or below the note head. This isn't to be confused with a dot for note length. That dot is to the side of the note inside of the staff. Because it seems more appropriate now that we're playing with staccato style, we're actually going to flip our thumbs inward and play with a German grip. This also means that we're going to be playing with a piston stroke rather than legato. Playing with staccato articulation will affect a couple of ways that we play. Firstly, our beating spots are going to go from the general 6 inches to about 3 inches apart. Tightening our beating spots lessens the resonance of the drum, clarifying the articulation. And secondly, as we mentioned before, the type of stroke that we play with. We're going to be playing with a piston stroke now. Staccato technique will vary depending on dynamics and your choice in sticks. Keep your ears open and feel free to make musical decisions. Marcato articulation. Marcato means to perform with emphasis. Think of it as adding weight like a tenuto. This is typically the loudest and most attack-emphasized articulation that we perform. At a forte dynamic, Marcato is played with arms rather than the wrist hinge. At piano, we use our fingers to emphasize the sound. Squeeze the fulcrum while snapping the stick in with the second and third fingers. Keep our hands and our arms relaxed. On screen now and in the bio is an articulation chart that is full of all the dynamics and articulations that we just talked about in this last chapter. If you go to the download in the description, there's actually going to be a ton more charts that I've created based off of other aspects of timpani playing as well. Rolls are created by using alternating single legato strokes. Like I mentioned earlier, for a fuller sounding roll, we want our beating spots to be spread a little further than 6 inches, so let's say we should be about 8 to 10 inches apart. Lug to lug. The idea is that we want the drum to sing, so we want our roll speed to match the resonance of the drum. The roll speed is determined by the tuning range, dynamics, and tempo. There are other factors to consider, such as the concert hall, whether the drum is parabolic or hemispheric, etc., but those will vary from person to person, so I'm not really going to cover that here. In terms of tuning range, the higher the pitch, the faster the roll must be. This is because the longer the drum rings, the slower your roll speed needs to be. Higher pitches tend to sustain for a less amount of time than lower pitches do. So generally, the smaller the drum, the less time it takes for the sound to decay. This is because the higher pitches actually decay a lot faster than the lower ones do. Dynamics. The louder the dynamic, the faster the roll. Attacks with high velocity, aka louder attacks, cause the resonance to die quicker than low velocity attacks, or quiet attacks. Tempo. The tempo determines the sticking and what hand we end the roll on. This is important when playing timpani because we have to think about what drum we're about to shift to for the next note. As a general rule, roll as slowly as possible while still projecting a sustained sound. If you hit too slowly, every hit is going to sound like its own articulated attack. For any rolls, try to use softer mallets. If hard mallets must be used, make extra effort to relax your hands and think of it as a legato stroke. Hard mallets are going to emphasize each individual attack, which we do not want during rolls whatsoever. Lastly, on forte piano rolls, strike the drum at forte and let it ring for a short period of time before initiating a piano legato roll. This is going to let the drum sing for a second before you actually continue to increase that sound. Before tuning mechanisms were invented, kettle drums were typically tuned to tonic and dominant of the key. Today, tuning is done with foot pedals. There are two types, balanced action and ratchet clutch. Ratchet clutch is also known as Dresden style. The foot pedal on a timpano drum affects the tightness of the head, therefore affecting the pitch of the drum. The tighter the head, the higher the pitch, and so on and so forth. When we do tune the drum, we want to tune approaching from below. So when tuning a note below, we want to overshoot the pitch bend down and then come back up to the correct pitch. To make tuning easier, ear training should be a part of your timpani practice. You should have a reference song or melody for each interval. This will let you immediately hear and adapt when pitches are off while playing. If you aren't at this point yet, make sure to download a tuner app and keep it on your stand while playing. Humming the desired pitch while tuning will also help improve your pitch identification. Once you're given a new piece of music, you want to mark what pitches each drum needs to be set at the beginning. I do this by drawing a big plus sign in the top left corner of my music and writing in the notes in each of its 4 quadrants. Lowest drum is the bottom left and top drum is the bottom right. Scan the page to see if you need to make any tuning adjustments throughout the piece. If you do need to tune later on, I would write the note change where you plan on physically manipulating the foot pedal. Muffling technique. Maintain your grip on the stick with the fulcrum, but extend the last 3 fingers of your hand gently to the head of the drum. Muffle close to where you strike the drum. Be careful not to create any additional sound when you muffle the drum. Whenever it's possible, try to play with one hand and muffle with the other. I do want to highlight the importance of not putting too much pressure on the head though. This can easily wear out your drums and make you need to replace your heads. Then again, a rest might not mean that the drum needs to be muffled. Much of timpani notation is inaccurate, and it's up to the performer and what the ensemble is playing that determines how long the timpani needs to sing. Knowing when and when to not take notation literally comes with experience and listening to music. Note values often indicate the stroke or touch rather than the literal length of a note. For example, an eighth note is often more articulate than a half note, but doesn't have to be shorter in length necessarily. Cross-sticking. This is done sparingly. Sometimes it might be tempting to play, but it might sound cleaner and better by shifting while keeping your hands low instead. Even still, sometimes we need to cross-stick. When we cross-stick, we need to keep our hands low, cross past the wrist, and never compromise the stroke. Our mallets are combinations of handles and cores. Handles are made of wood, bamboo, or carbon fiber, while cores are made of cork, hard felt, or wood. Mallet heads are usually covered with felt, but can be covered with chamois or suede as well. As a percussionist, you should have 3 different types of mallets: soft, legato mallets, medium for general purpose playing, and hard for staccato playing. Vic Firth, Innovative Percussion, and Freer are great mallet brands. To maintain your mallets, wrap your mallet heads in a plastic bag while storing your mallets to avoid the felts getting damaged. And never practice timpani on your jeans. Doing this damages your felt heads, as I had to learn the hard way. Former LA Philharmonic principal timpanist Mitchell Peters' book, Fundamental Method for Timpani. I did my research using this book and the book Sound Percussion by Dave Black and Chris Bernotis. Thank you guys so much for watching. I wanted to take a second at the end of the video to thank my supporters on Ko-fi, which I have just opened an account on, and I'm really enjoying it so far. So I wanted to take a second to say thank you to them, and you can become a member at Ko-fi and receive your own educational instrument infographics that I will eventually release in the form of a big PDF file for free, most likely. But for right now, if you guys would like to support me, my Ko-fi is linked in the description and probably in the comment section as well. Feel free to check out the videos that I have on screen right now for more educational or performance-based content, and happy practicing.